Welcome back to the Black and Raw podcast. I'm your host, Tino Kudatondarai Vunzalbaya. Here's a podcast that's created dialogue and a space for black men to be their most authentic selves. Today I am joined by Forbes 30 Under 30 Tony Weaver, author, writer, and community leader, really. We talk about the gap between being yourself and how schools actually treat children. We talk about phones and dopamines and what our young people are really going through today in this education system. And we talk about who gets to decide what books are essential. What books do kids need to be reading? Like, who makes those decisions? We talk about Tony's book, Weirdo, and his initiative called Nerd for Literacy, and how to create a culture of reading within our society. And there's a simple challenge in this. Embrace the cringe. Courage comes before confidence. Now, I hope you enjoy this episode. Please let me know what you think about the episode, whether you're listening or whether you're watching on YouTube. Put a review on Spotify or YouTube, or give it a nice little 5-star wherever you are, and share it with a friend, share it with some educators, share it with people who you think are going to get some immense value out of this podcast. I really appreciate you guys for listening. Here is my conversation with Tony Weaver. So, Tony, welcome to the Black and Raw podcast. It's really good to have you on.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, no, it's bro. I mean, for those watching on video, you'll see you've got plenty of comics behind you. And is that Miles Morales Superman mask? Not Superman mask, Batman mask in the...
Yeah,
that'd be your bottom right, isn't
it? Yeah, he was in one of these, but he was over there. And then I put Weirdo in that cubby. So he got moved gradually.
No, that's calm. I mean, to be fair, something that you've written yourself needs to be top dollar, isn't it? Top show.
Yeah.
Top show.
It took me a minute to get to that. What's the word? It took you a minute to get to that point. There was a significant point of time where it kind of felt corny to talk about my own writing. But
yeah.
Now I'm like, no, I actually worked really hard on this, and I think it's pretty good. So actually,
you might as well. You got to show it off. I mean, like. Yeah, I had a little look at it before, but I like the idea of it in terms of as you've trying to help others in schools and help the children, but like using it through your own experience. And I don't think there's enough of that. Like, I feel like schools are. I like school, but I think schools are struggling. I don't know what it's like in the States. I'm sure it's very different, but maybe very similar as well. But I guess just for you, like, yeah, what do you want it to have that impact in schools, or like what was your thinking and your ideas like?
I think education is just in a very interesting place right now. My mom's a public educator. So like I grew up with the principal as my mom. I spent a lot of time just in school, traditionally being in school, but also chilling in the administrator's office, sitting in the main office, talking to all the teachers, hanging out in the teacher's lounge. I spent a lot of time in those spaces. So I see school from the perspective of a student, but I also see school from the perspective of people that are trying to make that system work. And I think it's just a fundamentally broken system with adults that care about kids trying to support the kids that they can support. And when I wrote Weirdo, the intention was I want it to be something positive for the kids that are kind of having to find themselves in the system that's broken in the first place, and for the educators that are trying their best to make a clear path in a system that is like filled with junk, if that makes sense. Everybody is just doing their best. And I wanted Weirdo to be something encouraging as kids kind of go along that journey to self-actualization.
Yeah, because it's such a time where like your brain is changing and you're figuring out your identity. And then on top of all of that, you're navigating social situations. And I imagine with just the introduction of phones is like, I mean, I had phones at school, but I feel like now it feels completely different to what it was like when I was younger.
It's a pressure cooker. I think we tell kids to be themselves, but we don't give them any agency to figure out who they are in the first place. And also, if the person that they are diverts from what we think they're supposed to be, suddenly I don't want you to be yourself anymore. Be yourself, but stop dressing like that. Be yourself,
Mm.
but stop using those slang words. Be yourself, but why aren't you using your inside voice? Be yourself, but why can't you sit in a chair for 7.5 hours without talking or moving? There's this kind of dichotomy that's happening. And I think the phones are a huge problem, but I always feel bad because I say, like, man, these kids today, they don't know how to get off of their phones. They don't know how to get off of their phones. And I'm like, well, yeah, since they were children, you've been putting technology in front of them and you've been dropping them in unregulated technology environments that are optimized to simulate their brains and produce dopamine. Like it's addiction. You literally put them in
Mm.
online environments that breed addiction and they're like 11 years old. And you look at the 11-year-old like always on that dang phone. It's like, oh, I don't know, maybe if we put some safeguards in place, perhaps protect the
Yeah.
11-year-old. Things like that. Like kids are going through a lot, and I'm not one of those people that are like every kid is perfect. I'm like, no, there are some kids that are gremlins. Listen to me. I know them because they're in my Discord. They bully me every day. Okay, I'm not acting like every kid is an angel, but I do feel like
Mm.
every kid is worthy of love and a positive learning environment. And
Yeah.
Weirdo's supposed to contribute to that in some way.
Exactly. And I think as well, like, listen, as adults, we're all addicted to our phones as well. So
Yeah.
like if kids if we can't do it, how are we expecting 11-year-olds who have had it for
Yep.
the whole of their life to do it
Yep.
themselves?
Agreed.
Um, I guess in terms of with as you're saying, with the book, and as we've talked about, for children at this time, it's they're being told one message that they need to figure out themselves and have that self-actualization, but also they're in a system which doesn't allow for that. I guess what are your thoughts in terms of how that could be changed? Like what could be the dialogue that starts that movement for, I guess, a different form of education?
Well, I think how do I put it? When I was younger, I had a much more optimistic view about this. And I think that COVID and distance-based learning in the pandemic was the thing that kind of ruined my optimism about this
Mm,
because there was a point in time there was a point in time where I thought what we need to do is get really honest with ourselves about what is important about education. What do we want kids to know? What do we need kids to understand? What skills do we want them to have? And I think we should be focusing more on those skills than how they specifically learn those skills.
okay.
Because if you look at like in the States anyway, even when you look at our reading curriculum, say, well, we want kids to understand this theme, so they need to read this book. And I'm like, everyone hates that book. You've been putting that book in front of kids since I was a kid, and I hated that book. Like I hated that book. And they're like, well,
Mm,
this is the book, and you need to be disciplined enough to read this specific book, even though you can learn this somewhere else. I need you to learn it in this specific way. And when during COVID, when things got shut down, I was like, well, now they can't learn it the specific way you want them to learn it,
yeah,
huh?
true.
Now you
Yeah.
have to prioritize teaching it to them differently, right? Because you still want them to know the information, but now you're not in control either. So what are you going to do now that you've kind of had to cede control to this different circumstance? And legitimately, during this inserted, they were like, I don't care, they'll fall behind. It's like, oh, I don't care, they fall behind. They
Oh
had they
well.
had every option. They had every option to be like, let's build something new from the ground up. Let's try something else. Let's try something different. And they were like, I'm gonna stick to to the way that I want to do it, even if it's
Mm.
suboptimal and it hurts you in the long run. And that was the choice that got made. And I said, well, if that didn't make them change, I don't think it's changing.
A global pandemic would make you think. Well, you would think would make you rethink things, but
Yeah.
I feel like there's either two options: you just batten down the hatches, or you embrace the change, don't you? Really, with that.
Yeah, you kind of I'm in this weird place right now where the philosophical question that I'm asking myself as a writer and as a creative, especially as someone that writes books that like I want kids to read. As a writer, I have a bunch of
Mm.
stories I want to write, but I have a particularly vested interest in helping kids on their journeys to self-love and self-discovery. And I'm like, on paper, it seems like a lot of the powers that be care more about the information than they care about the kids. And
Yeah.
that's so interesting to me. I care more about making sure that Shakespeare gets to live on and making sure that the Odyssey gets to live on and making sure that Pride and Prejudice gets to live on than I care about the kids that are in front of me. It's like, well, I've decided that the canon needs to exist and be healthy, and therefore, to the detriment of the people that are alive today, I'm willing to kind of throw them under the bus to make sure that this guy that's been dead for 200 years still has his books read. And I don't get it. I don't understand it. I disagree with it deeply.
So you said, I guess just to unpack that a bit, that
Yeah.
you want these people to live on, the Shakespeares and sort of the great writers, but in the same essence, I guess, because we're talking about the books that everyone always reads and the
Mhm.
ones that are always repeated. And to be fair, don't get me wrong, I do love Shakespeare, and I think the beautiful thing about books is that they can survive a lifetime. I guess in in with that, as you were saying, that we want these wisdom to live on, but then also creating new stories as you're doing, and
Yeah.
new ways of getting kids to that self actualization. And
Mhm.
I guess, I don't know, I'm not a writer, but I guess nothing's an original idea, isn't it? You weave from different things and put things
Yeah.
together to create something new.
Yep.
Um, so I don't know. I'm just feeling like from all the books I'm also seeing and the people you're talking about, that's a bit in terms of how you approach it. I don't know. It's you, but just from what I'm hearing and saying about you and feeling about you, that's the vibe I'm getting.
Well, so how do I put it? I push back a little bit because for me, like I think one of my most controversial takes as a writer is that I'm like, number one, I don't like Shakespeare.
Okay.
I'm not a Shakespeare fan. Shakespeare stole most of his stuff. We can't even confirm that he wrote most of the things that his name is on. And
Mm,
I can't take people seriously that are like Shakespeare's one of the greatest writers of all time. And I'm like, I don't even know if Shakespeare was one of the greatest writers of his time period. He was a shareholder at the Globe Theater where all his plays got produced. So he had the influence to pick what their season was. Like,
yeah.
would
And
his stuff have actually gotten produced if he wasn't literally a part of the group of people that pick what got produced? I don't know. Like Shakespeare never really had to compete in the open marketplace solely based on the merit of his writing. He never had to do that. And I think right now, what are the issues with literature in general is that there are a significant group of texts that people say these are timeless texts, these are amazing texts, these are super important texts, but you have to like codify those texts into national curriculum to get people to read them. And I'm like,
yeah.
I don't
So
know,
are
man.
they? So are
If
they?
if you have to if you have to force your entire student population to read a book every year or else they wouldn't read it, is it really that good? Is it really that good? Like if you remove the compulsory element of it, would they
Anyone
go
read it?
find it themselves?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, if you can't survive that way, then like, what are we doing? Like, why are you dedicating so many resources to not making these authors compete in the marketplace of ideas? If they're that good, if they're as good as you say, if they're as universal as you say, if they're as timeless as you say, then like, then let them compete, bro.
Yeah.
Put them in the ring, put them on the mat. What are we doing?
To be fair, I didn't know that about Shakespeare. That, I mean, he basically just had white privilege. I mean, he lived
Yeah,
in
yeah,
Stratford,
they
which
don't
is
teach that. They
which
don't
is not
teach
far
that.
from me. They don't teach that. Yeah, because I didn't know that about Shakespeare. I heard some bits in terms about some of the stories are not his, but also him owning the own theater. It's like, yeah, so he can then
Well,
play what he wants, isn't
he
it?
wasn't an owner, but
He
he
was.
was like very high up in the leadership structure.
Oh, so
Um,
he was chilling
I,
either way, though.
yeah,
Like,
I give that nuance because there's at least one person with a classics degree that's going to be like, I agree with some of what you said, but some of that's not true. And I'm with you. I want to
yeah.
be I want to be historically
You're
accurate. You get me?
accurate. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So no, but as you're saying, like if you are pushing a certain book, like
Yeah.
how popular can it be? Um, and I guess they're still living from whatever hype it was that the book came out, or as you're saying, are you trying to push a certain agenda? I
Well,
mean,
I'm
with my
doing a lot of.
tinfoil hat on, like if a
Mhm.
government is spreading the book to you, what
How do
messages do
I
they want
put
to
it?
send?
I think it's like part conspiracy and part not. So like it is an agenda, right? But it's not an agenda in like the kind of they're trying to hide this from you, like red YouTube text agenda. It's an agenda in the sense that in literature, the stories that any culture chooses to enshrine or codify or uplift, within each and every one of those stories, there are subtle pieces of commentary being made about who matters and who doesn't, whose knowledge we respect and whose knowledge we don't, whose work needs to live on and whose doesn't. A way that I describe it is like, look at the planets, right? You think Uranus, Neptune, Saturn, all these things. These planets are named after gods from a very specific European pantheon. But those people weren't the people that discovered the planets. They were not the first people to like notate and figure out that there were other planetary bodies floating in the sky. They weren't the first people to map the stars. But when we look up at the sky, we go, oh, that's Neptune. Even though the culture from which Neptune comes from, they weren't even the people that discovered that. But in the way that we name things and the stories and the myths that get to live, we go, oh well, it's because this one's important. You need to know Neptune. You don't need to know whoever was the actual person to discover it. You need to know Shakespeare. You don't need to know like whatever. And here's the thing, I rant about it. I don't even have a contemporary name to give you because I guarantee that when Shakespeare was writing on the other side of the world with people that look like this, there was someone else that was writing. And I don't even know that guy's name, genuinely. Or I don't know that woman's name. I don't know who that person was. When we put together these ideas and we say, well, here's culturally what we value, here's what the kids need to know, what we're like subtly saying is, you need to know this. It's negotiable for me if you know all those other things. Like, are you familiar with the Odyssey, like the great epic?
I've heard a bit about it.
They have there's a movie coming out based on it by
Christopher Nolan. Yeah,
and
stellar cast. It looks like stellar cast.
The cast looks really cool. And when they got announced, people were like, "Oh, this is based on a book," and everybody was like, "Oh my god, people haven't read the Odyssey. You haven't read the Odyssey? Open up the schools. They haven't read the Odyssey." But the Odyssey isn't even the oldest form of an epic. You know, if I would never, or in America, no one would look you in the face and be like, "What? You haven't read the Bhagavad Gita? Open up the schools. You need to. You're really dumb." But the Bhagavad Gita like predates the Odyssey.
The Odyssey, yeah.
And has a lot of the same themes around like an epic story, this heroic tale, the return home, all these things that the Odyssey is supposedly important for you to know. Another book earlier did it, but it was in a part of the world that we just don't respect as much. So you don't need to know that one, but you do need to know the Odyssey because I've decided that that's what you need to know. And I think that's why education reform around books and things like that is such a difficult thing, because when you challenge the book, what you are also challenging is like, hey man, that thing that you thought was important, that you spent the last 40 years feeling like is important, it's important. It's not as important as you think it is. It's not the gate that everybody has to walk through. People can get to the same destination as you walking a different path. And some people are empowered by that, but most people are threatened by that. They're like, no, actually, you have to do it the specific way that I said do it. How dare you think there's any other way to do it?
Yeah, it's the status quo. They like the status quo. They like where it is. They like where it's at. And you know, when I really enjoy sort of these conversations, because I think it is a time just to sort of think about how it could look different and what could be different about the education system. Like, I'm a social worker, so I work close with schools, and like I feel a bit bad for schools because I think kids' needs have got so complex lately, and they need time to be able to think about a different way of educating children, but they don't have that time. And I remember just watching the news this morning, and they were saying that white British children sort of are already on the back foot before they go into year 7, like their attainment. And for girls, it's like their enjoyment of school and social relationships. And I'm just like, whoa, like even before they got into secondary school, kids are already feeling all of this. And how are we prepping our teachers to be ready for that, to then approach that and be able to change that? I guess for you, what would be your crazy, like, oh, if this could work, that would really help make that change? Like, you've got that power in your hands?
I think, how do I put it? Unfortunately, I've reached a place in my cynicism where I've decided that the most effective thing I can do is equip today's kids to communicate their ideas and use their energy to create the change that they want to make. I think
Mm,
there was a point in time when, like my early 20s, where I was like, I can be like a Steve Jobs, where it's like, wow, look at this one visionary guy that did this thing, and like, wow, they ain't doing it like Steve. Steve had vision. Steve, wow. Look at it. Look at what Steve did. And I wanted to do something like that where all the fingers were pointed at me. And it was like, wow, that Tony dude, he was,
damn.
Tony was really cooking for real. But now I'm like, I don't inherently feel like the solution for this sits with me. I feel like the solution sits with one of the kids that's going to read one of my books, one of the
Mm,
kids that's going to be inspired to write down their ideas or find their voice because of something that I make. And I think that's my big thing. I'm like, could it be accomplished by me? Possibly. I don't know. But what I think is more ideal is equipping an entire generation to be able to do what they need to do in each of their communities. I think
okay.
that's my big thing, or my harebrained scheme. I spent 6 years training at the Tupac Shakur Center for the Arts, and Tupac has a line in a poem where he says, I'm not saying I'm gonna change the world, but I am going to inspire the person that will." And when I was a kid looking up at that giant Tupac statue at the center, like, he talking about me. He talking about me for
Yeah.
real. But now as I'm an adult and I kind of settle into, here's what I'm good at, here's what I'm not good at, here's what I have capacity for, here's how I protect myself and don't like burn out. I'm like, maybe all we are doing is like preparing the field for the kids of the future to make the right play and score the
Yeah.
touchdown. And that's fine. I'm okay. I'm okay with being a part of that.
Yeah. And I think there's something beautiful about that, isn't it? Because I mean, Tupac is just Tupac. Like, man has
Yeah.
bars and bars, doesn't he? But being a part of that change, like, because I think change is slow anyway, and we want it to happen quickly, but good long-term change takes time. And if everyone sort of has that attitude of let's empower the next, let's empower others, like you said, you're building on their self-worth. You're allowing them to have that self-actualization, and being a kid in school and being able to voice your opinion in a constructive way that doesn't get you then sent to like an isolation or something. Or,
Hmm.
I mean, kid just has to do it himself, and whatever the consequences, hopefully schools catch on that actually these guys have a voice and they can make that change for themselves. It's who we're here for in the end, right? Is we're here for them.
It's interesting for me to say this because I'm a big comic manga fan. I love superheroes. I love main character energy. But in My Hero Academia, there's a character named Hawks, and his entire philosophy is that he wants to create a world in which heroes have a bunch of free time, where heroes don't really have to work that hard.
Mm,
Because the commentary there is that heroes are a symptom of a broken system. If our systems worked, we wouldn't need heroes. If we were
yeah.
creating something at scale that could empower each person to kind of live in their purpose and walk in their journey, then we wouldn't need extraordinary people to kind of rise above the casuals and go and save everybody. If instead we were systemically able to create systems that we didn't need to be saved from, and I think that form of systemic thinking and systemic change making is what I think towards.
Yeah, I mean, I love relating pop culture and anime with things that happen, with things that we want that change, because I think that is beautiful. And I guess for you, like, I saw about the being named Forbes 30 under 30.
Yeah.
Dope stop. Um, at like, I think that is sort of just a huge achievement in yourself. Like, I guess when you got that, like, what were you feeling? Like, what were some of the excitements?
I thought doors were gonna open. I'm not gonna lie to you. I got that email. I found, well, actually, they didn't email me. I got a text from somebody saying congratulations. I found out that I was on there as everybody else found out.
Yeah.
But I feel like I thought more doors were gonna open. The world is very interesting. You get how do I put it? Uh there can be someone that can like go viral for a specific video. They go viral for that video and then they end up on TV for something. And they do that TV interview, and that TV interview encourages them to go to, or that TV interview helps them go to other places. And then the other places that they go, suddenly they've got like a podcast and like they're a guest contributor on a TV show. And after 6 months, you're like, why is this person here giving commentary again? And you're like, oh, well, because 6 months ago they did this thing that went viral. Like they did that one thing, and now suddenly open door, open door, open door, open door, open door. And you can go show up at all these places and nobody really questions why you're there because you did that one thing that one time. And I swore the Forbes 30 and 30 was going to be my one thing that one time. Where like, it's fine. I did that one thing that one time, and now all of the doors are going to swing open. And every point in my life where I've assumed that I've done that one thing that's going to open the door has been like, nope, door's still closed. Got to keep pushing, bro. Got to keep moving.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oof, 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 oof. So I don't have a choice to stop. I gotta keep moving forward because I gotta, what's the word? I gotta accomplish the things I gotta accomplish. There are people I want to support, you know?
Yeah. Who are those? Who are some of those people that you want to support? What are some of those things that you want to do?
I think if you talk to any writer, especially children's writers, they're like, "Oh, I really want kids to read read my stuff, and I want kids to like know about what I made and things like that." And I'm like, "That's cool, but if I get really, really, really specific, I get very scared about a world in which people can't tell their stories, a world in which people don't know how to use their voices. There's something inside of them that they just can't share. They just don't know how to get it out there. So for me, I'm like, all of the storytellers, the people that have stories to tell, the people that have things that they're trying to express, the people that believe something about the world, that have discovered something that they want to share, that they want people to know. I need you to know that you got to open your mouth and tell your story. And I think everything that I'm doing with Weirdo, with Nerds for Literacy, with my content, like it's really about how do I prime you guys to get out there and speak and express yourself? Because there's someone that's going to need to hear your story, not mine, not what I have to say. There's something that someone needs to hear that only you can say. And if you don't say it, the world is fundamentally lacking or missing that thing. And I get scared about what happens if we have to live in a world like that. So I want to do something about that.
Yeah. Wow. I need to take a moment from that because I was a bit absorbed in there, being like, feeling like you're talking to me, feeling like you're talking to others, and being like, you need to share your story. You need to do what you want to do. And by the sounds of it, just from listening to you talk, you're doing that. You're already doing that, and you're continuing to do that even more. Your next book, I guess, uh what are you maybe hoping to do differently than what you did with Weirdo? Or are you, yeah.
So I think for Weirdo 2, it's a challenging book because it is less autobiographical. It's challenging, but it's also rewarding in that way. I get to tell stories that are a little bit more fantastical. But since I don't have my real life to pull from, I got to structure things myself. Uh, I very much like ensemble cast, and the largest struggle with Weirdo 2 has been how do you make it clear who the main character is while also giving other people in the cast things to do? Like you look at One Piece and Luffy is off doing his deal, but there are like 6 people on his ship. And it's like, well, what are they doing right now?
But are they
Which
just
is why
chilling?
Oda splits them up so much. It'd be like, well, half of them are over here doing something completely different. We'll find out what they do doing later. But for now, it's Luffy and these 2 other people, or Luffy and this one other person. Um, it's a different book, but the ethos is the same. I'm trying to speak truth to power and encourage people, encourage kids to kind of embrace who they are. I think
Yeah.
Weirdo 2 is different because in Weirdo 1, we're talking about mental health. We're talking about self-love. And all of those things are like, who in their right mind is going to raise their hand and be like, actually, I don't think kids need self-love. I actually don't think about youth mental health. Very few people are going to do that. But in
Mm.
Weirdo 2, we're interrogating some of these systems that create poor mental health outcomes for kids in the first place. And that's what's interesting about it. Like everybody will be like, ooh, I want kids to feel good about themselves. I'm like, right. So you want kids to feel good about themselves, right? And I go, cool. So here's what you do at scale that systemically contributes to kids not feeling good about themselves. We should change that. Like when I flip that mirror, it's like, wow, who could be causing all these mental health, all these
What
negative
a
mental health outcomes? It's
shame.
you,
Couldn't be
and then
me.
you flip the mirror over, and they're like, whoa, that's not true. That's not true. Um, so I'm preparing myself for like the pushback and for the what's the word I want to use? I'm preparing myself for the pushback, preparing myself for some of the tension, but it's a happy story. And I also
Yeah.
think it's something that kids and adults will like.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing. And trying to challenge that, isn't it? For, as you're saying, put the mirror back on the
Mm-hmm.
society, on the systems that are doing it. Yeah, they won't like that, to be fair. But I guess how I try and think on it is that no one really likes a mirror being put on maybe what they're insecure about or shameful about. But at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
it then takes a brave person to be like, okay, you've shown this on me. What am I going to do next? Like, what
Yep.
am I going to do next?
Yep.
And I think that's a powerful place to be in if you're able to use it in a way. But I also think it doesn't necessarily, it's not always that when you do it the first time, you then be like, oh yeah, be super vulnerable. But like, it needs to
Mm-hmm.
happen sometimes a few times. And you're like, okay, I learn a bit from that, learn a bit better with that. And I think also that's maybe how the children can learn that something happens to you that doesn't automatically mean like you need to completely change, but like you start to make small changes and it doesn't have to be so big. And I think also the fact that they've got social media and the fact we've got social media, everything has to be so big. Everything has to be
Mm-hmm.
either glossy or sexy or like bang, like, oh my gosh, I did this one thing and my whole life changed. When it's like, man,
Mm-hmm.
that don't really work for anybody. You have to have lots of little things to build that change in you. Um, and I think, yeah, for children, I just do hope for this for the next generation. Um, I also hope we get better leaders from them too, to be fair, because that orange man in the White House is, I see him on my news every day, bro. Every day. I can't get enough of him. He's comedy, but also dangerous. But yeah,
Yeah, you gotta
you'll get me talking about
you
politics,
gotta
bro.
you gotta
You'll
stay
you'll be
vigilant.
here longer.
You gotta stay vigilant. But I think when it comes to kids, the thing that a lot of people are underestimating is that there are people that are in place to prey on kids' insecurities. Like there's a video that I'm working on right now that I don't know. I hold on a minute. I'm gonna I'm gonna hit a button and record myself because I've never said this. I've never said it like out loud.
Okay.
Um,
I'm
but
glad I'm getting the first
my
hint.
idea is essentially that like kids need to get off of these podcasts and get like into these garage bands. Like when I was young and I felt lonely and my crush didn't text me back and I didn't feel like I could have any friends, I didn't get on no podcast and have a grown man tell me at 14 years old that all women are terrible. I got a bass guitar out of my basement and got to work, bro. I got
Mm.
a bass guitar out of my basement and got to work. Me and the boys went around metropolitan Atlanta, playing at churches and dentist office, belting out the pain, um, the experiences. And what a lot of people don't understand is that the feelings that are natural with adolescence that need to be processed during adolescence are instead of creating ways for kids to process them via the arts and via writing and via self-expression. Instead, there are people using those as like profit incentives. They're like, oh no, that insecurity that you feel, I don't want you to work it out. I want to sell you a solution. What's the
Mm.
solution? Women and black people are terrible, and you should subscribe to my Substack. And I'm like, people don't understand how insidious the like monetization pipeline for youth suffering and loneliness is. You got to get out of that pipeline, and you got to get in the garage, bro. Get in the garage. You need to be
Yeah.
you don't need to be out here trying to debate people. You need to be at Warp Tour. All right. You need to be at Warp Tour. Pop punk disappeared. And I think all of the kids that should be pop punk right now are listening to somebody's podcast. Get out the podcast. Get
You know you're on a
get into
podcast right
pop
now,
punk.
right? I hear you. I hear you. Yeah, I hear you because I think as well, it's like you know, for you it was the rock band, but for someone, for another kid, it could be playing outside, like football,
Yep.
like just like getting out there, man, just getting out there, talking to others, like even just debating amongst each other and being like, oh, I heard about this, and then someone's like, actually, maybe that's not cool, but like you get that difference of opinion, whereas social media, it's a cacophony of what you want to hear. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'll scroll on X at times and then I'll like look at, like, I'm a Liverpool fan, so I'll look at like people hating on my team and I'll be like, oh, you know what, you're stupid, you're an idiot, you're an idiot. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm getting like angry at like dudes I don't even know, like what. So as you're saying, the benefit of kids suffering, like I think teenage girls have a lot of self-harm things and eating disorders that are pushed to them and the algorithms, and you're like, what are we doing? Like
Mm-hmm.
generally, what are we doing? If that's what is feeding our minds, no wonder. I mean, no wonder we all got issues, but like, no wonder why kids are struggling. And the school then doesn't help that because that gets reinforced. Like, if you're being bullied at school, it then goes back home as well. Like before, if you're bullied at school, you're just bullied at school. Like you
Yeah.
go home, you could be calm, but now they can text you, they can put you in group chats and like send anything about you. It's, hey, hey, damn.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to depress, but
I mean, it's an issue that no previous generation has had to deal with. And I hate it when people look at kids and try to get judgy. And I'm like, they're navigating something that none of us have navigated before.
mm,
And no one's really had to navigate that before. And we're not necessarily helping either.
yeah, we're definitely not helping with that. I guess in terms of for you, what would you want a young person, a young child who maybe wants to say their piece, maybe has a crazy idea, like what's a way that they can get started doing that? Like what brave step do they maybe need to take, or first small step, would you say?
I think you gotta let go of some of your fears. Um, don't how do I put it? Um, you gotta let go of some of your fears. Um, I think today's kids, everybody's afraid to be cringe. Everybody's afraid to be cringe, bro. You gotta embrace the cringe. That's what you
Mm.
gotta do. You gotta embrace the cringe. I cringe at myself regularly, often. There are things that I was doing 3 years ago, like how I was dressing and everything, where I'm like, dog, what are you doing? And 3 years from now, I'll probably look back at me today and be like,
Dog, what are
dog,
you
what are
doing?
you doing? But I think that's great because in any given moment, I am living like as the 100% version of myself. So much so that when I change or when I shift, when I grow and I evolve, I'm so in tune with myself that I look back at previous iterations and I'm like, oh, I wouldn't do that today. I want to
Mm.
do something different today. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about life. You get to grow and change and expand and evolve. And God, how much of life do you miss out on? Um, how much of life do you miss out on because you what's the word? Because you're holding back trying to impress a person that doesn't exist.
Yeah, yeah. Everyone is at the end of the day as well. Everyone's just thinking about themselves, aren't they? Like how you view yourself. Like no one, like if you think, oh, this person's gonna think I'm cringe, they're probably thinking just like, oh, am I cringe, or what's like, does that person not like me? Like we are. There are people that want to help. Don't get me wrong. But it's human nature, isn't it? We think about ourselves. We think what is happening to us, and then we then put out into the world. So it's I think it's that place you say in that fear, like get rid of that, like get rid of it because it's not serving you. I understand why you have it. We all have it. We all have our fears.
Mhm.
Trying to think of a fear I have now, to be fair, but it's not coming to mind. I definitely do have a fear. Don't get me wrong, guys. Don't really like big spiders. I
Yeah,
would say
I don't either.
no, they don't do. I used to not like dogs at one point, but I'm kind of all right with dogs now. But like if I do see like a big German Shepherd or a pit bull, there is still a little bit of a fear, like at a bark. I'm sure there's more. Maybe I'll share one day.
You're like now I need to reflect on my fears.
Damn. What did that get me? Um, so no, so I mean, well, I just wanted to check in because I know you said you got 30 minutes, but like the thing is, if no one stops me, I will just keep you here for a while.
I gotta look in the time.
That's calm. That's calm. That's calm. Um, so I guess what I really want to find out from you in terms of, I know you mentioned one of your projects that you were doing, and I just wanted to hear a bit more about that, to be fair.
Yeah, so Nerds for Literacy is a charity initiative where we're trying to put books into the hands of kids at underfunded schools and libraries. Kids are missing out on a lot of educational materials. Over 35% of schools in the US don't have a librarian, and we're seeing the impact of that when you look at youth literacy rates. But I think that nerds, especially, have this very personal relationship with reading because reading is kind of how we found our hobbies and became who we were. So if there's anyone that would support kids getting access to these new worlds, it would be uh, I think it'd be nerds. So we're kind
Yeah,
of putting together this coalition. Almost 3,000 nerds have donated to the Nerds for Literacy. Oh, over 3,000. Turn up. I just checked. I haven't been looking.
nice.
Over 3,000 nerds have donated to the Nerds for Literacy. And we're going to be going around the country, putting books into kids' hands, and also supporting local bookstores in the process.
Oh man, no, that's amazing, and I think that is, as you saying, the nerds are the ones to deliver it because yeah,
Yeah.
they want to show that. Like I would class myself as a nerd, but like I haven't. I've read a few comics. I've got ones that I like. I'm a lot more of a TV show, movies sort of nerd, but. Like, you'll still find me watching like law videos and comic videos on YouTube. Like, I think that's just how I consumed my media at my age. Like, everything through video usually, video and audio. I will say, so podcasts are always good too. Um, I guess for libraries, what for libraries and public spaces, like what do you think are going to be some of those challenges in getting kids there and in terms of rejuvenating those spaces?
I think it's really resources. I think there's a desire. You put the resources there, and then you kind of work to create a culture of reading. And that's what we're really interested to explore in Nerds for Literacy. How do we help places create a culture of reading? It's very easy to drop off some books, take some photos, and leave. But I'm much more
Mm,
interested in is how do we put resources into the hands of the right people so that kids consistently have a place to come back to. So we're not just giving physical books. There's also like an online platform full of resources and tools that'll be free to teachers and librarians that we're working on as well. We're really aiming for it to be this kind of comprehensive thing spearheaded by the nerd community.
yeah. No, I love that. And as you're saying, putting those resources into those places and creating the culture. Yeah, because I feel like that's the culture is what is going to have that lasting effect, isn't it? That's going to have that lasting change. And um, I mean, you know what? And now the thing is, I'm thinking of like I can't remember the last time I went to a library. Like I don't know. Also, what I'd love to maybe see, and I know in the UK, like they took a lot of funding away from those places as well. Um, but like whether we could have those places funded and I don't know, created into maybe we need social spaces like you have a library, but it's also multifunctional. You have maybe things that people need, whether you do it a food bank and a library and or access to internet. Like I'm just thinking of maybe ways that you can make it a new version of a library. I'd love a coffee shop in a library. To be fair, that'd be lush. Like that'd be lush. I'd stay there all day. If they had coffee, they've got me already. They got me already. I guess in terms of for you, um, when you think about young people, when you think about sort of the children that you want to impact, I guess what would their future look like with a culture of reading and advocating for themselves and self love and actualization and
I think it is something that is so distinctly different from the world that we currently live in. I can't even imagine it. It's
wow.
that different. It's there's that much of a shift. And that's what makes me so excited about it. I think things can look really different. Um, and I think that's what gets me hype about the idea or the concept. I think the world can legitimately look different, and it'll take time. But kids that are firm in themselves, that know how to process their insecurities and their feelings, that can develop their principles, um, are going to be significantly less susceptible to online manipulation and a lot of these tactics that we're seeing. And I'm really excited for a world that could be like that.
No, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Um, and I think that's a perfect place to probably end it, Tony. I really appreciate it. I want you to plug yourself as well, man. Like tell us where to find you, tell us what you're doing, what you're excited about that's coming up soon. I will put everything into the show notes as well, but I want to hear it. I want to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at Tony Weaver Jr. on all platforms, and you can learn more about the Nerds for Literacy initiative at nerdsforliteracy.com. Weirdo is available wherever books are sold. You can find it anywhere: Amazon, Barnes and Noble, your local bookstore, things like that.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. So I appreciate you coming, and I hope you have a good day.
Thank you so much. You have a wonderful day as well.
So, thank you for listening to this episode of the Black and Raw podcast. If you want to know more about Tony Weaver, then I will put all his details into the show notes. You can go and check that out, or go onto my website and have a look there. All his details are on there. I really appreciate Tony for coming onto the podcast, for giving me his time to talk. And guys, guess what? Next week, we have my 100th episode. 100 episodes! Eee! And I got a special guest lining up for you guys. A special guest. Special. Very special, yes. And my Trump impression, very special. It's unprecedented. That's a really poor Trump impression. I'm really sorry about that one, but oh well. Anyway, thank you for listening to this episode of the Black and Raw podcast. And look forward to my 100th episode next week, baby. Let's go. Thanks.